Let us say together our vision and mission statements.
Centered God, we inspire spiritual transformation, creating a world of love, peace, and prosperity. We are an inclusive spiritual community, inspiring, awakening, and serving in love.
This is my favorite part of the service, the children's blessing. And we are blessed to have Rachel and Adam with us and
Keegan and Desmond.
yes, we're just so blessed. So let us say this blessing for those wonderful children and young people with us this morning in our lives and in the world, and that inner child within each and every one of us. We
love you. We bless you. We hold Christ in you. We accept you just the way you are. Walk in beauty. You are divine.
We're going to go ahead and sing another song. Go ahead and stand up. It's the Unity Advent song. It's very repetitive. So we're going to do 4 times, 4 verses. We're going to sing it as is. Like the star of Bethlehem, shining inside of me, guiding me from where I am, shining inside of me, in my heart, in my heart, there is hope in my heart, in my heart. As I listen quietly, waiting inside of me, God brings peace and harmony, waiting inside of me, in my mind, in my mind. There is peace in my heart, in my mind, deeply flowing from within, moving inside of me. Love is pouring without end, moving inside of me, in my soul, in my soul. There is love in my soul, in my soul. Filled with wonder and with grace, living inside of me. Christ is born now in this place, living inside of me, in my life, in my life. There is joy in my life, in my life. Yes.
An usher, please bring the prayer box forward. Have the blessing of this morning. Thank you, Reverend Terry. No, I did not. Talking to you.
Okay, let's everybody just take a deep breath. Now focus our prayer energy towards the requests that are in this box. Focus that prayer energy towards the requests that are in your heart. Knowing that as we pray, we're not changing God. We are changing ourselves. We are changing our understanding. We are opening and creating that awareness of that divine energy that is here present in all situations. So as we do this, as we opening our hearts, opening our awareness to our connection with that divine energy, opening our awareness that we are all one. And as we hold the truth in each situation, for those that are in our hearts, in our concern, we know that that divine energy is operating. That divine energy is bringing wholeness. That divine energy is bringing peace, is bringing joy. And as we do this, let us also reach out in our prayer time together at this moment to all those in our country and around the world who are in situations that we are also one with them. They are one with us. And we are all one with that divine energy. So holding that light, holding the love, the joy, the peace. As we say, thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Carol. And now, Clifford Stocking is going to read the daily word for us.
The word for today is peace. The peace of God lives in me. I believe that's part of where the Christ Spirit is, or part of the function of the Christ Spirit within each of us. I choose to begin this day in peace. As I do, I activate an energy that goes before me. In any encounter with someone who is stressed or upset, I respond with calmness rather than reacting. My peace present emanates serenely wherever I go. The peace of God that lives in me is readily accessible because nobody and nothing are bigger or more powerful than God. The calm peace of my soul remains undisturbed. If my imagination should create a worrisome scenario, I respond with faithful embrace that all things work together for good. I make the return to peace. I think clearly. I act confidently. I remain a calm and serene soul. From Romans 8. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to His purpose.
Thank you very much. Let us still our minds, empty our hearts, and prepare ourselves to say our blessed Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, with great pleasure that I introduce Reverend Terry Thompson from Baptist Church. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing this morning?
Thanks.
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lose this jacket. So we don't have to be so formal because we're friends and family here.
That's true.
And the second thing that I want to let you know is that I'm going to be just a little bit longer than what you might normally be used to. I have something I'd like to share with you that I think that you'll get a good bit out of. But the first thing I want to do is, how was everybody's Thanksgiving? Good?
Yeah.
Did we have anybody that cooked the Thanksgiving dinner last week, or did you?
Well, I cooked a turkey, but everybody shared in the Thanksgiving dinner because we all brought potluck in addition to the turkey.
Okay, great. Well, I think that you're probably going to be able to relate to this probably as much as anybody, because one of the things that you need to know about me is I'm a person who can find truth in practically anything. And one of the things that I found some truth with that I'd like to share with you is what I call the dinner lesson, the metaphysics of a holiday meal. And a lot of this is going to revolve around the process of preparing a turkey. And even though we're kind of past Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas coming up, and some of you may be looking at cooking a turkey for Christmas or for any time that you cook a turkey. So without any further ado, I'm going to get into my story, which has to do with a young man named Harold King. Harold has just gotten home, and it's roughly about, I'd say, October 2004. And Harold has had a really bad day at work. He's got a box in his hand that has all of his belongings from work. And he's thinking to himself, I don't know whether I'm going back to work tomorrow or not. I think I might sue every single one of them there. Now, this is a time before cell phones were really as prevalent as they are now. And if you had a cell phone, it was probably a flip phone. You know, not one of these smartphones like you have now. If you had a really fancy one, it was a BlackBerry or a Palm Pilot. Can anybody remember back that far? And back in those days, because the minutes were so expensive, everybody still had a landline. So here comes Harold walking up to his house with his box. He gets to the apartment door, and he hears the phone ring on the other side. See, he just kind of shifts the box over to one hand, reaches in the pocket, pulls out his key, opens the door, runs over and grabs the phone. Who is it? Well, hello to you, Harry old. Harold smiled. It was his baby sister Fiona. And since the time that she was growing up, she always called him Harry old. The reason was that she couldn't quite get it straight between Harry and Harold, so she kind of put the two together, and she called him Harry old. And that was her pet name for her brother the whole time she was growing up. And she would call him that in really intimate times when they would spend time together. But she had another name for him too, the name that she used when she got ticked off with him because she knew it would upset him. She called him Harry Old Man, because she said he rhymed like an old man. So she says, Harry, what's wrong? Sis, I had a very hard day at work today. What happened? Didn't you get the promotion? She knew Harry had been up for a promotion. He worked for this IT company, and they had a vacancy in a department. He applied for the position. No, sis, I didn't get it. I didn't get the position. And I'm thinking about suing them because I'm going to sue the pants off them. That's what I'm going to do. Harry, what happened? They gave it to somebody else. Well, who did they give it to? Sarah Rodriguez, that little sucker. They think that because they gave it to a woman, that I'm not going to have anything to complain about. Well, what do you mean, Harry? You know what I mean, Fiona. They didn't give it to me because I'm a black man. Now, Fiona just listened to this because she'd heard all this stuff before. Same old Harry, same old drama. Everything was all about race for him. She said, well, Harry, what happened? They didn't give me the job. They gave it to a woman, and they think that because she's a woman and she's Hispanic, that I'm not going to know what happened. And then they had the gall to say to me, we really wanted to give you the job, Harry. We considered you very carefully. But Sarah brings some things to the table that you just don't right now. She's organized. She knows how to work well with people. And her IT skills are razor sharp. Harry, your skills have gotten a bit outdated. And you don't work as well with people as you could. And you know we've had a bit of trouble with you meeting your projects and your deadlines completely on time. But you know, we want you to be ready the next time that we have a position that opens up. So here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to have Jonathan, one of the owners, to work with you, to mentor you, to help you with your interpersonal skills. And on top of it, we want to send you to a place that you can take a seminar so you can get some time management skills. And then we want you to get your certifications for Cisco, for IT admin, and some of these other things that you've just kind of gotten a little bit rusty with. So Fiona was confused. She says, well, Harry, that's a good thing, isn't it? Absolutely not. They are setting me up. They just want to have it documented that they offered me these things, Fiona. Don't you see it? I'm 42 years old, and it's just like Daddy said. They don't want to see a black man get ahead. Now, Fiona took a breath because she knew she was getting ready to step into a minefield, and she didn't want to get herself blown up. So as gently as she could, she said, Harry, it doesn't quite make sense to me. I mean, I have people that work for me, and I can tell you, if I wanted to fire them, I wouldn't spend my time and money trying to build them up and educate them. Well, whose side are you on? You sound like one of them. It's not that, Harry. It's just that I know the people at your job, and they seem like they're really stand-up people. Fiona, trust me, this is what it is. All right, Harry, if you say so, it's just that you sound like him. Now, Harold knew who she meant, but he wanted to make her say it. Who do you mean, Fiona? You sound like Daddy. You sound like Frank. I'm nothing like Frank. I'm nothing like him. How can you say that about me? Whatever, Harry. Listen, we didn't get a chance to talk about what it is that I called you for. So can we take a minute and talk about that? He said, sure. Do I need to sit down? Do I need to get the nitroglycerin out for my heart? It sounds like this is going to be a little bit serious. Well, Harry, you might. Here's the thing. As you know, I've gone back to college, and this semester has just been brutal. They've been giving me tons and tons of homework, and between the kids and the properties that I'm managing, I just can't do it all. So what are you saying, Fiona? Are you going to drop out of school? You know, I really don't understand why you're going to school anyway. You've got a husband to take care of you. He makes more than enough money. And, you know, this thing that you're doing with the real estate, that can't be much more than a hobby, isn't it? Really, Harry? Seriously? Sometimes I wonder if we were raised in the same family, or if wolves dropped you off at the front door when you turned 18. First of all, I remember what things were like when Daddy left Mama and the rest of us to run off after that little dalliance just so he could prove his manhood. I remember how Mama struggled, how she cried and prayed every night to keep a roof over our head, food in our stomachs, clothes on our backs. And I swore I'd never rely on a man to do for me what I could do for myself. Now, my husband's a good man, but I want things out of life. School was a good experience for me, not like it was for you. I didn't have the pressure of Daddy on my back, making life a living hell for me because I disappointed him. My experience with school was a wonderful experience. I love learning. We live in a dynamic world that's constantly changing. Harry, don't you want to be a part of that change? Don't you want to expand yourself? Or are you just trying to be the same old Harry that you've always been? Well, Fiona, then what's the problem? If you're not going to drop classes, what are you going to do? It's Thanksgiving, Harry. I can't do Thanksgiving anymore. You know, I've been trying to carry this since Mama died. It's been 3 years, but I can't do it this year. Well, Harold felt like somebody had sucker punched him in the gut when he wasn't looking. Because for Harry, Thanksgiving was the absolute 100% best holiday out of the entire year. He could remember those parties that his mother threw. His mother would make these really elaborate Thanksgivings. She would set the table up with a fancy tablecloth. She'd decorate the room with flowers, candles, and she'd break out the best china. She'd have the silver out and the crystal goblets. And then she would bring this sumptuous turkey. It was always seasoned perfectly, this nice golden brown color. And everything was just a wonderful event. It was like a banquet that was fit for a royal family. Fiona, on the other hand, would slap together something with a paper tablecloth, paper plates and cups, plastic forks and knives, and they'd sit down, a few of them, and just get together. But he still looked forward to it. Not so much because of what it was then, but what it had meant to him and the memories that it brought up for him. And it made him feel close to their mother, who he had loved so dearly and that left him too soon. She said, well, Harry, I just can't do it this year. It's so much work, all the cleaning and the chopping and the cooking. It takes me 3 or 4 days to get everything together, and I don't have any help. Fiona, what do you mean you don't have any help? I help, I do my part. I bring the soda and the chips and the ice. Really, Harry? That takes you maybe an hour to do, including the drive to the store. It takes me 3 days of solid work, and nobody helps out. The kids are too young, you're off enjoying yourself, and by the time that dinner is done, I'm exhausted. And then I've got to wash all the dishes and everything by myself. I don't know how Mama did it. And she always looked so gorgeous and relaxed while she was doing it. Well, Fiona, I think really you ought to do Thanksgiving, and you need to drop one of those classes, because Thanksgiving is so important. Really, Harry? Well, I tell you what. If you have Thanksgiving dinner this year, if we have it, it'll be because you cooked it. And I'll bring the chips, the ice, and the soda. I will talk to you later, Harry, old man, click. Well, Harry just stood there with his mouth open. He didn't know what to say. He knew he had crossed the line. But there was something about him, he just couldn't seem to help himself. It's like he had these bad habits and these things that he knew about himself, but he couldn't understand why he did things that he shouldn't do. And he thought about things and thought about his relationship. His wife had left him a few months ago and taken the kids, and he was stuck there in this little apartment, and he felt really alone. And he wished that his mother was there, because she would be able to tell him what he needed to do to get all this straight. So, not really being able to do anything else and knowing that Fiona wasn't going to talk to him, at least until she got over being angry with him, he got himself together and got to bed, and he fell asleep. The next thing Harry remembered, he was walking down the street in the old house where he grew up. To the old house that he grew up in. He walked up the steps, and stood in the vestibule in the foyer, and looked in the mirror, and he looked at himself, and he looked like he did when he was about 12 years old. And then he hears a voice call out to him, Harry? Harry, old man, is that you? Harry froze and stopped for a second, and then he rushed to the kitchen, his heart beating fast. He almost knocked over a pot on the way, and he stood in the kitchen door, and there standing in front of him was his mother, Dora King. He stood there and he looked at her, and she looked just as beautiful as the day that she died. She looked at him like she was about 40 years old. Her skin was smooth and soft, free from wrinkles. She was shapely, and in shape she was petite. And she had that long, gorgeous hair that framed her face, luscious and beautiful, and completely salt and pepper. She had started to prematurely gray around the time that she was 28 years old. And by the time that she was 35, it just was completely silver. But it looked gorgeous on her. She wasn't vain about it. She was one of these natural beauties that didn't need a whole lot of makeup. And she wore it proudly, and it earned her the name, the Silver Fox, because people thought that she was so beautiful. And there she was, standing in front of them, a dream come true. She opened her arms up to welcome Harry, and he ran and jumped and grabbed her as if he'd never let her go. He just buried his face in her chest, and he sniffed deeply and smelled the Palmer's cocoa butter that she used to keep her skin so soft. He said, Mama, I've missed you. She said, really, Harry, I've missed you too. But what's going on here? You kind of seem a little bit funny to me the way that you're acting. said, Mama, Fiona's being mean to me. She said, son, you and Fiona fight like cats and dogs. What happened? Fiona said that if we're going to have Thanksgiving, I've got to make Thanksgiving dinner. And that she'll bring the ice and the chips and the soda, and I've got to do all the rest. Okay, Harry, and what did you do to her? I told her she should quit school. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Can you speak a little bit louder? I told her she should quit school so she could make Thanksgiving dinner. Really, Harry? That sounded very smart. So, young man, what made you tell her to do that? I don't know, Mama, it just came out. Well, I tell you what, I taught you how to cook a long time ago. The only thing that I didn't teach you was how to make a turkey. Would you like for me to teach you? Really, Mama? Would you teach me how to do it? Would you teach me? Sure, I'll teach you, but if I'm going to teach you, you've got to agree to be open about how you do it and to open yourself to the process. Well, what do you mean, Mama? I want you to be open. Cooking a turkey is like doing anything in life. And if you're open, organized, if you prepare, and then execute, then finally you can sit back and enjoy everything. Really, Mama? So O is for organize, P is for preparation or prepare, E is for execute, and N is enjoy? That doesn't fit. Everything started out with the word in the first letter. Okay, Harold, well, the first thing that you have to know to be successful about anything is that you've got to choose form. You've got to choose substance over form, principle over appearances. Now, enjoy may not start with an N, but it fits right in. It's the perfect thing that belongs here. Because when you're doing something that you want to be successful with, you need to enjoy the entire process from beginning to end. And when you enjoy what you do, you put yourself in alignment with your purpose in life, and you nourish your soul with everything that you do. Does that make sense, Harry? Yes, Mama, that makes sense. Now, Harry remembered that just before, that after their father had left them, their mother had started going to one of these positive thinking churches. He couldn't remember exactly what they called it, something like new thinking, new way of looking at things, or new thought. And the church that she went through, it was something like unification or united or unity or something other like that. He couldn't quite remember, but he knew that she had credited it to helping her to not only survive Daddy leaving them, but to thrive, and that it gave her something that nourished her and strengthened her. So he had always tuned it out. He didn't have much time for God or for church, because he thought if there really was a God, God wouldn't have let their daddy leave them, that God would have made him stay. But right now, he was desperate, and he was willing to listen to anything. So she said, Harry, it's time for us to get started. Let's get organized. The thing is that you need to know that there are two creations. The first creation happens here in your mind. The second one happens with what you see in the physical world. If you don't like what you see in the physical world, that means that you have not taken the time here to create the vision for the life and the thing that you want to do. That's not true, Mama. It's not true. I really wanted that job at work. I saw myself with it, and they didn't give it to me because they don't want to see a black man get ahead. Really, Harry? They didn't want to see you get ahead. So if you really saw yourself with that job, how come you didn't take advantage of the professional development opportunities? Did you just sit around and daydream, or did you qualify yourself the way that that young woman did? Getting an education, keeping up on top of the trends, learning to work with people. Or did you just sit back and daydream and think that because you're a man and because you had seniority, they would automatically give it to you? Well, Mama, everybody knows that IT is a man's world. Show me something that a woman's done. Dora looked at him and put her hands on her hips and said, Harold Aloysius King, have you lost your ever-loving mind? I know that that's not the way that I raised you. That sounds like Frank, your daddy, talking. Well, Mama, show me one. Show me just one woman that's made a contribution, and I'll eat my words. Okay. How about Admiral Amazing Grace Hopper? Who? Admiral who? Admiral Amazing Grace Hopper. She was a person in the military that invented what you now call modern computer science. She was the woman who helped the military get their computer projects up online. She was the one that led them and developed the A and B languages, which were the precursor to that C language that you tell me that everybody uses to build everything important. She was the woman who helped to develop that program so that it became successful. She was the woman who coined the term bug to mean a computer defect because they found a dead moth in one of the switches that they used to create the programs. Mama, I didn't know that. How did you learn so much about this? Son, you'd be surprised what you learn after you die. It's all available to you. And as for your job, people don't make offers to you to help you improve if they want to get rid of you, son. You need to start being responsible for yourself. And the way that you do that is by being open. So now, if you don't have any more of these little objections, let's get started. Go get a pen and paper, and let's sit down and organize. So Harold ran, got the pen and paper, sat down at the kitchen table. I want you to make up a menu of everything you want to do. Well, that's easy, Mama. I want to do a party just like what you used to do. And I want to have lots of people and have them sit around and talk, and we can have this really big fun party where they can talk politics and we can play cards and we can watch TV and everything's going to be beautiful. It sounds like a lot of work, Harry. You sure that's what you want to do? Yes, Mom, it's what I want to do. Then I want you to create the vision, write it down on paper and make it clear so that anybody that reads it will know what it is that you want to do. And the more detailed that you make it, the more real that you make it in your mind before you start to create it, the easier it will be for you to create it when you have to do it. So Harold sat down and he wrote up lists. He wrote up a menu. He made shopping lists. He made up a list of people that he wanted to invite. He wrote down the things that he had on hand already and what it is he needed to purchase. He wrote down things like how to set the table. He needed to research that so he could do it. He came up with this whole list of all these different things that he needed to do. Then he got a calendar and he scheduled each thing out so he had deadlines and he had order in his life. She said to him, okay, now that you've gotten everything done, you have placed yourself in order. I want you to understand, Harry, order is the first rule of the universe. The first thing that God created was order. Do you know how he did that, Harry? No, Mama, I don't know. Well, Harry, when God created light, God gave us a way to be able to measure time, and that helped us to create order. Because once they had a day and they had a night, they had a rhythm. They had a way for them to be able to measure things, to be able to see how things belong. That light helped them to be able to see, and they had night and day to have order and a rhythm. So your job is going to be to manage your time and the way that you interact with time. You can't control it, but you manage how you spend your time. And that helps you to be in order. Does that make sense, Harry? Yes, Mommy, it makes sense. All right. So now we've got the organization out of the way. We're ready to move on to the next step, which is the preparation. You said that you wanted to have a baked turkey. You know, some people fry it, some people put it in one of those big steam pits and grill it, but we're going to bake it. And in order for you to do that, you need to know that there are two types of turkeys that you can deal with. You can have a frozen turkey, or you can have a fresh turkey. Now, I think looking at you, the experience is going to be better working with a frozen turkey. So we're going to go to the supermarket and get one. And the next thing that Harry knew, he was standing in the middle of a supermarket. He looked out, and as far as he could see, there were cases and cases of freezers. Those freezer cases that they put the turkeys in. He said, wow, Mama, how am I going to find a turkey here? Dora said to him, Harold, when I used to do this, I would find a turkey that spoke to me, that attracted me, that called out to me. What I want you to do is I want you to search, and I want you to find a turkey that's got your name on it. Can you do that? Sure, Mama, I can do that. So Harold walked, and he looked. He searched, And he looked. But he wasn't quite convinced that he was going to be able to find it. He said, Mama, there's so many, how am I going to be able to find it? Harold, take a moment, get still, close your eyes, and see what comes to you. Let the turkey call you. It will let you know. So Harold did what he was told. He closed his eyes. He got still. And then something said, open your eyes. And he looked way in the back, and he saw a light. He said, Mama, I see a light. Do you see it? Yes, baby, I see it. Let's go take a look and see. Harold walked all the way to the back of the store, and in one of the freezer cases, there was a light shining down on this huge turkey. It was almost as big as he was. And written on the turkey packaging, it said, Harold Aloysius King. Mama, it has my name on it. Yes, baby, I see that. That's your turkey. So what do we do next? Well, Harry, it's frozen solid. We've got to take it out of the freezer and put it in the sink over here so it can thaw. So Harold squatted down and reached and picked it up and hugged it. He could feel the coldness of it against his chest and his arms. And he kind of wallowed it over to the sink like, oh, it was so heavy, and then he hoisted it, boom, and it dropped in the bottom of the sink. And at that point, he had all this coldness against him. He was like really cold. He says, Mama, what do we do now? She says, Harold, sit down, warm yourself up, and wait. You have to let the turkey thaw. So Harold went and he sat down, and he rubbed his hands together, and he rubbed his chest and his arms, and as he sat there and got quiet, something strange started to happen. He began to have these thoughts that came to him. Things like, a man should always be in the lead. Asians really can't drive good because their eyes are slanted. You can't trust a Muslim because they're all terrorists. White people don't really want black people to get ahead. And all these different things started to come to Harold. He started to warm up and he realized that he was sweating profusely. And the next thing he knew, his mother said to him, Harry, are you okay? You look kind of funny, huh? And he looked down at himself and he was completely covered in water. And all these different thoughts had come up that he wondered where they came from. Some of them were things that he didn't really quite agree with, but that he knew that came up in his mind from time to time. And some of them were things that he had really strong opinions about. And he wasn't always right, but he still felt the way that he felt about it. But now they seem to have kind of loosened up a little bit. So she said, Harry, turkey's thawed. We can clean it now. It's time for us to move on to the preparation stage. So he said, okay, Mama, well, what do we need to do? Well, we want to clean the turkey up and we want to season it. But I have a better way I used to refer to this. I said that we had to do the 3 P's. The 3 P's of purging, prayer, and praise. Well, Mama, how does that work with a turkey? I'm going to show you how that works. Now, the purging is like the cleaning. You know, nobody wants to eat a dirty bird. And that bird still, I know that you think that they cleaned it up at the processing plant, but it's got little broken off pieces of feather still left there where it broke off at the shaft. And it's got some old hard skin on it that we need to get off. There's nothing worse than eating a turkey and enjoying it, and then you bite down on a feather, and it just destroys the experience. You don't want that to happen with your meal, do you, Harry? No, Mama, I don't. Now, let's clean up the bird. So we've got to purge it. So Harry still wasn't convinced because he thought they did a great job of cleaning it up before they sent it to the store. But you know what? He had promised he was going to listen, so he did what Mama told him to do. So he took the turkey, and he's looking at it, and turning it over, and says, Mama, I don't see anything. Baby, it's there. You just have to know where to look. I tell you what, I'll tell you where to start. Take the turkey and turn it over. And back by where the heel is, where the Achilles tendon is, there's always a buildup of hard skin there. Harold took a look, and sure enough, it was like there was a small sheet on that back part. Dory handed him a butter knife, and he scraped at it a little bit and pulled the flap loose so he could grab it and pull it. And as soon as he touched it, something happened. He had this experience where he was transported back to an experience he had with Renee Smith, the very first girlfriend that he ever had, his first love. And he remembered how it felt when she broke his heart and cheated on him with one of his best friends. And he swore that day that he would never trust his heart to a woman again. Then he came back and he said, Mama, something strange just happened. Well, what happened, baby? And he told her. She said, really? That happened? Well, I tell you what, let's try the other side and let's see what happens with that one. So he grabs the other leg and scrapes it and he touches it. And he had this flashback where he was transported. He was in the 6th grade and it was time for him to do his presentation. He had worked really hard on that presentation. He had made up notes for it. He was prepared. He had practiced it. He picked up his notes and started to walk to the front of the class. But Harold was a little bit clumsy as a young boy. And somehow he tripped over something and everything went flying all over the place. And he fell flat on his face and all the kids burst out laughing at him. And that day Harold made a decision that he was not going to put himself into another public speaking situation for him to be humiliated. So he found himself back with his mother again and he says, Mama, what is it with this skin? Every time I touch it, I find that there's something, I have these experiences. There's something wrong with this turkey. I don't want to touch it anymore. She said, Harold, I'm going to let you in on something that I'm not supposed to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That turkey represents you. That turkey represents your mind, and the Thanksgiving dinner that you're doing, that represents life. And if you can learn to work with this turkey, you can learn to work with your mind. And there's nothing that you won't be able to do in life if you put your mind to it. The hard skin, that represents how we build up a hardness to experiences that we've had where we've been hurt and we've been irritated and we don't want to deal with it, so we build up a thick skin to try to protect ourselves. Those feathers that you're having trouble finding, those are our doubts, our fears, our worries, the things that we feel guilty about, our unforgiveness, the things that we hold on to that we should let go of. And if you want to be successful with what you do, you need to let those things go and to clean up your mind of those things. Because while you're out enjoying things, while you're in the middle of enjoying the experiences that you have, those things are going to pop up at the worst time and they're going to ruin whatever it is that you want to do. Do you think you can do that, Harry? I don't know, Mama, this is really hard. Well, let me ask you something. Do you want to have that lavish grand Thanksgiving dinner that you told me about? Harold thought about it. He said, yes, Mama, I do. Then you've got to clean the turkey. So Harold started to look, and she says, Mama, I can't find it. She says, keep looking. Take your hands and kind of knead the turkey a little bit, and you'll feel something sticking you. So he worked on it a little bit, and finally he found the feather. And he went, and she said, when you find it, squeeze around it a little bit, and it will pop out. So he found the feather, squeezed it, one popped out, and he remembered this argument that he had had with his baby sister 30 years ago, and how she had hurt his feelings. And he experienced the whole thing over again, and then he let it go. Then he found another one. And that one reminded him of a time that he felt guilty about something, that he had gone into a store and he had shoplifted some candy out. Nobody ever caught him. He didn't know why he did it, but he felt guilty about it. And the more feathers that he found, he kept having these experiences. There must have been hundreds of feathers that he found, all attached to hundreds of different experiences. His fears, his doubts, his worries, all these different things that he needed to go through. And finally, Harry thought that he had gotten them all. He says, Mama, I think that they're all done. I can't find any more. She says, no, son, you still have one or two more you need to deal with. What do you mean, Mama? Look at this one here. And Harold turned around, and all of a sudden, it's like the world was transformed. He was standing on top of that turkey skin, and everything was huge. And standing next to him, he looked up and there was this feather. It was deformed, about 14 feet tall, and it was covered with goo and snot and slime. And he just felt disgusted and his hands balled up. And he looked at it and says, I'm not going to pull that feather. Why not, Harry? I know what this is. It's Frank, and I refuse to forgive him. Harry, that's not Frank. That's you. That's what your feelings for Frank has done to you, that it's rotted your soul. And if you don't want to live your life like this, you need to pluck that feather and get rid of it. No, Mama, I can't forgive him. I won't do it. And I don't know how it is that you can tell me to do that after all the things that he did to you. Son, let me tell you something. When your daddy left us, that was the most difficult time of my life. Every day, I would cry, I'd worry about trying to keep a roof over your head, clothes on your back for you and your sister, and food in your stomach. And it wasn't until I found Unity that they gave me the tools that I needed in order to be able to deal with the situation. I learned how to talk to God, not a God way up there in the sky, but the God that was in me, the God that I am. And I would pray to God every night, and I would say to myself, Lord, why does this man not love me anymore? What did I do? And I prayed about it, and I prayed about it night after night. And finally, one night, God answered me. God said to me, Dora, why don't you love you? Why don't you love you yourself enough to let him go and to be the magnificent, wonderful person that you can be? And that was the day that Silver Fox Catering was born. If you remember, Harry, I started out just in our kitchen, and within a couple of months, I had people lined up at my door trying to get me to do catering events, because I discovered that that was what my purpose in life was. That was why I was put here. That was what it was that I needed to do. And I passed it on to you, but you let your daddy talk you out of doing things like cooking. That's a woman's job and woman's work. But Harry, there is no man work or woman's work. It's what's in your soul, son. It's what you need to do to express yourself. I remember one day that your daddy came by after I'd had this revelation. And your daddy used to like to mess with me. He'd be late with the child support money because he knew that it would rattle me. So this day he comes over, Dora, I'm going to be a little bit late this time on the money. Something came up and I'm just not going to be able to do it on time. And he stood there looking at me with a little smirk on his face, as if he's just waiting for me to blow up. And I stood there and I looked at him and I said, okay, Frank, that's fine. I don't think you understand, Dora. I'm not going to be able to give the money to you this week. It's fine, Frank. I don't need you to support me because I've got my own way of supporting me. I can take care of myself, and we don't need your money. Now, I know that you're a man that prides yourself on being able to handle his business, and that you don't think that a woman can take care of herself. So if you don't really feel that you can handle your business like a man, you keep that little bit of money. That's not enough for me to buy toilet paper with to wipe the kids behind. Son, after that day, your daddy was never late and he never made another excuse about bringing you that money. But son, it's not about your daddy, it's about you. You're not doing a thing to your daddy by holding on to that feather. You're hurting yourself. And if you really want to move forward in life, pull up that feather and move on. Well, Harry didn't like it, but what she said made sense. So he went over to it, and he grabbed it at the root, and he tugged, and finally he got it out. And it's like he had this release of energy, that all of a sudden he felt free. He felt light. He felt like something had been lifted from him. He said, Mama, I've done it. I got rid of it. We cleaned up the bird. Everything is fine. She said, no, Harry. There's still one more. What, Mama? I got it all. I forgave Daddy. I let it go. No, Harry, there's still one more. You need to pull that one over there. Harry turned around and looked. And what he saw made him almost want to cry and almost broke his heart. There was the most beautiful, lovely, radiant silver feather that he'd ever seen in his life. He said, no, Mama. No, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. Why, Harry? No, Mama. Please don't make me pull it. I can't do it. Harry, it's time. Please, Mama, don't make me do it. Why, Harry? Because it's all that I've got left of you. She said, baby, as long as you are alive, as long as you keep me in your thoughts, and she touched him right here on his head, and you keep me in your heart, she touched him on his chest. Mama's always going to be with you. I will live in your heart, in your mind, in your soul. As long as you have life, I have life. But sweetie, it's time to let go of all that hatred, all that hurt that you've been feeling, and to let me go. Harry didn't really want to do it, but he went and he pulled it anyway. And as he was pulling it, it came back to him the day that his mother died. She wasn't that old, she was about 65 years old. And she still looked as radiant and as beautiful as she ever had, or as she had ever been. She was leaving a party, driving home, and a man was driving drunk down the street. His car hopped over the divider and ran head on at her, killed her instantly. And Harry never forgave that man. The man ended up going to jail for vehicular homicide. The man would try to right him. He got involved with a 12-step program in jail, and one of the things that he needed to do was to ask for forgiveness from people that he had harmed in his life. So Harry was one of those people. But Harry never wanted to talk to the man. He sent the letters back. He refused to have anything to do with it. And at that moment, he let go all of his anger, all of his hate for the man, and realized that that man was at a particular point in his life, and that he needed to get the lessons that he needed to get, and that Harry needed to move on. So once they were done with that, then Doris said to him, Harry, we've done the purging part, we've cleaned up the bird. Now it's time for the seasoning, which I call the prayer. Well, Mama, why do you call it the prayer and the seasoning? Because, Harry, I'm very particular about the things that I put on my turkey. I only use, it's great for the Lowry seasoning salt, the garlic powder, I use all that. But the thing that makes my turkey, is that Bell seasoning salt. And Harry thought about it and remembered that they went to 7 different stores looking for that Bell's turkey seasoning before they finally found it. His mother insisted that she had to have it. She said, Harry, when you season your bird and you season your mind, you've got to choose very carefully what it is that you use. If you just put any old thing on it, you're going to get any old kind of results. But the Bells, I knew that that made the difference. Ooh, I'm getting a phone call here. My alarm. So she says to him, Harry, what kind of things are you filling your mind with? What kind of seasonings are you seasoning your consciousness with? Harry thought about what she was saying and thought about all the different negative things that he talked about and how he got his nickname Harry Old Man and how he complained. And he realized the things that his mother was telling him. She said, Harry, I want you to take that seasoning and I want you to put it on the bird now. Problem that Fiona has when she makes her turkeys, and the reason they don't come out like mine, is that she waits till the last minute to do it. When I make my turkeys, I season them on Sunday, even though I'm not going to cook them till Wednesday or Thursday, because that gives the seasoning a chance to seep through, and it blends in with the turkey and it becomes part of the turkey. And that's why people, when they run into problems, they pray to God expecting a quick result like that, and it doesn't usually happen that way because their minds have not been prepared properly. You don't wait until you get into trouble to start preparing your mind to be what you need to be. You start right now before you get into trouble. Because if you're not all prayed up by the time you get into trouble, it's not going to happen then. So Harry thought about it, and he said, that makes sense. I need to start thinking about the things that I want to do more. I want to start seasoning my mind so that I have the seasonings, that I've got things set up the way that I want to see them, that I've got things that I want them to be a certain way that I can see it, that I can see it in my mind, that it's all clear for me. So Dora says to him, take the bells, and I want you to season it all around. I want you to open the bird up and put some inside the cavity. And I want you to slather it all around and make sure it's seasoned good, and we're going to let it sit for a few days so that it can go all the way through. So Harry did what Dora told him to do. They put the Lowry's on, they put the garlic, and they got the bird all seasoned up. She said, there's something else you need to do. A turkey is a very dry bird, and it doesn't have its own natural fat. In order for you to make that turkey moist, you're going to need to put butter in it. And butter is like those rich ideas that we have that sustain us, that keep our consciousness flexible and moist. So that when we have trials and tribulations that come up in our lives, we have a way to deal with it. So Harry took the butter and he slathered it all over the turkey, put it on the inside, and then they wrapped the turkey up. So he says, well, Mama, what's this next thing about praise? What are we praising, because we haven't done anything yet? She says, Harry, whenever you do something, you need to give thanks, and you need to be thankful, and you need to praise God and praise life for everything that you have. You need to learn how to be grateful for the good that you have in your life, because that draws more good into your life. And you know what, Harry? You need to be even grateful about the things that don't seem like they're good in your life, because those things are showing you where you have work to do, where you have shortcomings, and that if you're open to it and you embrace even the bad things, that you'll find that they're a blessing, and they'll help you to get to where you need to be. All of a sudden, Harry found himself transformed and inside of a church. And he was standing in front of a congregation looking at him. Harry found himself saying, Reverend Sharon Thompson, what is today?
This is the day that the Lord has made.
And what are you going to do with it?
I choose to be glad and rejoicing.
Thank you. Reverend Carol Landry, what is today?
This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it.
Lucy Brown, what is today?
This is the day the Lord has made.
And what are you going to do with this day?
I choose to rejoice and be glad in it.
Congregation, what is today?
This is the day the Lord has made.
And what are you going to do with today?
I choose to rejoice and be glad in it.
Can you play the music?
There you go.
Now, if you're grateful, if you want to give thanks to God and praise, stand up on your feet and say, thank you, God, thank you for this day.
Say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful. So grateful. Oh, I'm so grateful. So I say thank you for this day. Thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing, this healing, this healing. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you for my friend, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Now thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. I wanna say thank you, thank you. Say thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you. I wanna say thank you, say thank you. I'm so grateful, so grateful, so grateful, so grateful, so grateful, so I'm so grateful. I wanna say thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanna say thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful. Just say thank you now, just thank you now, thank you now, thank you now, thank you now, thank you.
Thank you. And after that experience, Harold told the congregation they could sit down. He himself transformed back in his kitchen with his mother with this huge turkey ready to go. So Dora says to him, well, Harry, we've organized and we've prepared. And it may surprise you, but we've done most of the work already. The rest of it from here should just be downhill because we've gotten everything set up properly. So now it's time for us to execute. So he says, Mama, what do we do to execute? Well, it's time to cook the bird. Harry looked at the bird. Mama, this bird is huge. What are we going to put it in? She said, well, look over here, and I think that you might find a pan big enough. So Harry goes over into the pantry. He looks and he finds this huge pot to cook the bird in. He brings it over, sets it down. She said, now Harry, you got to put a rack for the bird to rest on. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour some water in the bottom of the roasting pan in order for that to help to keep the moisture in for the bird. Excuse me. So Harry does what his mother tells him, and he places the bird on top of the rack. She says, I want you to cover it up with foil because this is so big, we don't have a top that's going to fit over it. So Harry gets the foil. He finds this huge sheet, rips it off, covers the bird up with it, and Dora looks at it and says, Harry, why don't you put the bright side up? Because, Mama, it's pretty like that, and I like how it's shiny, and I can see my reflection in it. Dora shook her head. Harry, leave it up to young people to do what looks good and not what works best. The shiny side goes toward the bird, toward what you're cooking, because it reflects the heat back in. And that's just what it's like with us, with how we look at things. That shiny thing represents where you focus your attention on. And when you've got the shiny side looking outside at the world, that means that we're looking at appearances. We're valuing the opinions of other people, what they think and what they do to tell us what to do. But when you have your reflection going inside and you connect with the spirit that you are, that dwells inside of you, you're working with spirit and you're getting what's right for you. That bird is your consciousness and you need to reflect on what's inside of you. So take that foil and turn it over and let's reflect on what we need to reflect in us with that seasoning and everything else that we've done. The water represents pure spirit. And that pure spirit is going to heat up with the rest of everything when we put it in the oven. And whatever other things that we've added with the vegetables that we've put in here. And it's going to all blend in together and make a beautiful bird. So Harry takes the foil and he reverses it and puts the shiny side down. Now go heat up the oven. Well, Mama, how high should we put the oven? Well, son, that's going to depend. It's going to depend on how quickly you want this bird to cook. We could cook it on 250 or 300, but it would take a very long time to do, and you get a very tender bird. There are other people that like to cook it on a high oven so that they get a crispy skin. But you got to be careful with that, Harry, because if you keep it on too high a fire, if you keep it too hot, then if you're not careful about watching the bird, it may burn and dry out. It's kind of like life. We have this quality about us called zeal. And when our zeal is very high, we can find ourselves getting carried away with stuff and we can get ourselves burned out. But if it's too low, it will take us a long time for us to get to where we want to go. The secret for us is to find this right temperature so that we can cook and that we can develop and move along at the pace that's right for us. So Harry, I think for you it's probably going to be somewhere between 350 and 375. It's going to take a certain amount of time for each pound of turkey that it's got to sit there, but at least you'll be able to watch it. So Harry sets the oven, he lets it preheat, and then he takes that whole big roasting pan and lifts it up and takes it over to the oven, slides it in, closes the door. What do we do now, Mama? The turkey's cooking. Well, you've got a whole bunch of other things you need to do. There's the potato salad that needs to be made, the greens that need to be chopped up, all this other work now you can do while these things are going on. But periodically, you need to baste the turkey. Baste the turkey, why do I need to do that? Is that to help keep it from drying out? No, son, that's a misconception. As long as you've got the turkey covered, that foil or the cover is going to keep all the moisture in. What the basting does is that helps to make sure that the turkey cooks evenly and brownly. You know how your sister has one side that looks like it's white and the other side that looks like it's dark brown? That's because she didn't baste the turkey. She has an uneven way that the heat's distributing. But if you go in periodically and you baste the turkey, and you make sure that that moisture, that oil, the water all goes evenly on the turkey skin, it's going to brown evenly. And that's the way that things are in life. When I was alive, I remember reading a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there was this guy, Stephen Covey, talking about the different roles that we have in life. Basting that turkey is like taking time periodically to look at all the different roles that we have in life and to make sure that each one of them gets their own proper attention. Harold thought about his own life, and he realized that his life had gotten lopsided, that he was spending so much time thinking about how people were treating him and how nobody wanted him to get ahead, and spending all his time at work and out with his friends, that he had neglected his household. He had neglected his relationship with his wife and his kids. And he'd gotten to the point where he didn't know them, and they didn't know him. Basting the turkey, she said, will enable you to give attention to every part of your life. So Harold, every half hour or so, I want you to go back and I want you to baste that turkey. And Harold did that, and periodically he'd go and he'd get this big spoon and he would just baste the turkey. He'd get some of the liquid from the bottom and baste the turkey. And while he was doing all that, it made him think about his life and the different things that he had been neglecting and how he needed to go take a look at everything to make sure that in each of those areas he had different priorities and that he kept them in order and that he gave everything a little bit of attention so that it got him where he needed to go. And also to realize that there are some things that he just simply did not need to do. He couldn't stretch himself out but so thin because he was only one person. So he had to be able to set priorities to make sure that each of those areas worked. And over this time, the bird cooked, and it cooked, and it came up to a golden brown. And Harold found that The bird was nice and moist, it was sumptuous, and it was well seasoned. So she said, okay, Harold, turkey's ready. It's time for us to move to the last part, and that is to enjoy. When you have all of your people over, you're going to sit around and you're going to have dinner together. You're going to have wonderful conversation. Everyone's going to share a good time and a good meal. And then after that, you're going to have games and different things that you set up. Some people are going to watch the ball game. Some people are going to sit around and talk politics. Some people are going to sit up and play cards and talk smack all night long. And all of it's good because they'll enjoy themselves. So Harold was at the end of the time to prepare the turkey, and he found himself standing outside in front of their house with his mother. She said, Harry, my time with you is almost up. It's almost time for me to leave. Mama, I've learned so much from you, and I see how I can apply this in my life, but I'm afraid that I'm not going to remember all of it. And then she did something that really blew Harry's mind. She had on this all-white robe, and somewhere out of it she produced this huge cell phone. Now, it really blew his mind because when she was alive, he couldn't get her to even learn how to text. She opens up the app that says soul-to-soul communication. And Harry looked at the phone. It said Divine Mind Network, powered by the Holy Spirit. She brought up the contact list and found his name in it, Harry King, pressed it and said upload. And Harry looked at the progress bar and saw it go. Mama, I've got it. I remember everything. And she said, Harry, when you get back, you hug your sister, you enjoy your family and friends, and whatever it is that you do with this Thanksgiving dinner, I know it's going to be a success. And when you're done, I want you to have a good time and to have a piece of turkey for Mama, and to remember, I love you. Harry sat up in his bed and opened his eyes up and said, Mama, I love you too. And he was so excited he couldn't wait to get started on things. He looked at the clock. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. He got up and immediately started writing up his list. And he started doing all the different things that Dora had taught him to do. And when it got to be about 7 or 8 o'clock, he called his sister up and told her about the dream and got her excited and said that he was going to do Thanksgiving dinner and that she could bring the ice, the chips, and the soda and just make sure that she brought everybody over. And when they had that Thanksgiving dinner that year, he invited everybody. He called up his wife and got her to come over with the kids. He called up old friends. He even invited Frank and had Frank over for dinner. And they had about 30 or 40 people the way that his mother used to do when she was alive. And the thing was so successful that even though that was 2004, people are still talking about it today. So Unity on the Mountain, I'm going to wrap up my time with you. I think I've taken up enough of your time, and I appreciate your indulgence and your patience. And my advice to you is going to be kind of like what Dora gave to Harold. As you're coming up to the holidays with Christmas, whether you have a turkey, whether you have a ham, or whether you go completely vegan, have a good time, and whatever you decide to eat, have a piece for Reverend Terry, and enjoy yourself.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and sing another song. Stand up and stretch those legs. We're going to go ahead and sing Amazing Things. We're going to sing the first verse twice through just so you get familiar with it. It's been long. Just the verse, not the chorus. We'll just do the verse twice.
Progress that you made, the reason
blessing. The
Inexhaustible resource of spirit is equal to every demand.
There is no
reality in lack.
Abundance is here and now manifest. Because I believe in love, I give. Because I believe in love, I give. Because I believe in love, and love is given to me. I give because I believe in joy. I give because I believe in joy. I give because I believe in joy, and joy is given to me.
Let us say our offertory and prayer blessing. Divine love,
Through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Lovingly I give, and lovingly I receive.
it's just so wonderful to have you all with us. Reverend Terry Thompson, what a fantastic, inspiring sermon. That's wonderful. And information that you with us to reach in. All right. Do we have any announcements? Reverend Carroll.
Well, we have the Sunday, the 20th, I believe it is, Sunday before Christmas, we're going to have a special service. So we'll have our regular Sunday service, and then we'll have a candle service at 6 o'clock that evening. So put that on your calendar.
That's on the 20th?
That's the 20th. The Sunday, whatever the Sunday is.
Yeah, it's the
So
20th.
go by the day.
I've got a calendar right here.
Anything else? Is there anything else that we?
And what time is the candle service?
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. So great time to bring guests and things like that.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Any other announcements? Lucy?
Can't think of any.
Oh.
Yeah.
Aren't we painting
Oh,
Saturday?
December the 18th.
Yeah, so it's next Saturday, is it? No,
December the 18th, I think there's
That's
supposed
a
to be some
Friday.
folks get together and
The,
finish up that,
Timing and.
the lower classroom. Yes.
Yes, yes.
And another thing I have been thinking about that I wanted to mention, and I'll try and remember to mention it too. You know, we have that big jug out there that has change in it. And we started that in order to continue to raise funds for the building and to make some changes. And as you all know, one of the final things that we're looking at changing is the carpet, and particularly upstairs, and of course down here too, ultimately. So I would like to see, and maybe I'll bring the jug up front later, is I'd like to see if we could go ahead and fill that thing up before the first of the year. Ooh, that's a big one, isn't it? So start gathering up your change. Well, we could go for it. You gotta have big expectations, right?
Bills take up more room than
Yeah.
well, change does.
Change or whatever, just change. And I think, I think sometimes things like that, when they sit in the same place for so long, they kind of become invisible. So I think I'm gonna move it to where it's up there and visible. And so the rest of the week, start gathering up all the change you can find, nickels, dimes, pennies, anything's quarters, you know, all that, and bring it and see if we can fill that jug up.
Of course, we're not averse to having paper money.
Oh, of course not. No. Paper money is good too, so.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. That's a great idea, Lucy. Well, I think it's time for our peace song.
Yep.
Great music.
All right, we will go ahead and close out with peace song.
Wherever I am, God is, and all is well.